to Exploring with the Estuarium. My name is Ariel and I'll be your educator. Today we're going to learn all about watersheds, pollution, stormwater runoff, and the ways you can make a difference. This is an enviroscape. It's a model of a watershed. So what is a watershed? It's any area that sheds off or feeds water into streams and rivers that eventually lead down to a larger body of water. We're going to use this model today to talk about our watershed, pollution, and ways that we can make a difference here in Olympia. So a few places that we have in Olympia are industrial areas, hills and mountains, shopping areas, residential, waterfront property, and agricultural lands. First, we need to start building our roads and ways for people to get around. So we're going to add bridges to connect our lands. And we'll also need to add parking lots to build on and a wharf near the water. Now that we have our roads, we also need to add our cars so we can get around on those roads. So we have our trucks and our cars. We also have our farm equipment too. And we have boats. Next, we're going to add our housing because people always need a place to live. So we have an apartment building, single family home, a farmhouse. We also need to add a barn on the farm. And we have a shopping center so people can get their goods. And we have a factory. On our land, it's not just humans, we also have animals. So we're going to be adding sheep and chickens and horses to our farm. And then in our residential areas, I always see rabbits running around. And then in our mountains and our hills, sometimes we have deer and elk, but we're going to model that with a bison. Now we have our town built. Here in Olympia and wherever people are, we tend to bring pollution with us. And so today I have a few items that we're going to use to pretend as pollution so we can talk about stormwater runoff. One of the things that we see a lot here in Olympia with pollution is trash. So we're going to use sprinkles, rainbow sprinkles, to mock as our trash. So where do you think we find trash here in Olympia? Sometimes we find it along the shoreline at the wharf. Other times we find it in residential areas. We also find a lot of it in our major parking lots. So here at the mall or other shopping centers. And then we do sometimes find them in the hills where people picnic. And so usually we abide by a leave no trace, pack it in, pack it out. Whatever you bring out into nature, you need to bring back with you, but it's not always the case. So now we've added our litter. We have another item that I see quite often is fertilizers. Fertilizers are really bad for our water quality. It leads to algae blooms and other harmful chemicals getting in our water that can hurt the wildlife. So fertilizers, some people use them on their lawns at home to make them green. So let's add some in our residential areas. A lot of businesses too like to make sure their lawns are pretty and green during the year, so they add fertilizers. And then on our farms, they use fertilizers to help our food grow. We also have oil and gas. Wherever we have cars, we have drips or leaks that happen from those cars or exhaust too. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get their cars checked regularly, and so they miss those oil slicks that build up underneath their cars. So it's a good thing if you take your car in once a year for maintenance to make sure you're not leaking oil or gas into the Puget Sound. So I'm going to add a few drops on the cars here for oil and gas and other pollutions that come off of our cars. We have brown sprinkles, which we're going to use as poop. So poop is one of the leading causes of fecal coliform bacteria in our water. And that's coming from our animals and dog poop specifically. So we're going to add a bunch of sprinkles over in our residential areas because people who have dogs sometimes forget to pick up their dog poop. And each dog poops about half a pound a day. That's a lot of poop that builds up over the year that is washing down into our water. Another thing our poop comes from is from manures on farms and the animal waste out on those farms. And then we have our wildlife that also poops. But then another leading cause for our poop getting into the water is leaking septic tanks. So we're going to double the amount of poop in the residential area because some people don't check their septic tanks or get them cleaned that often. So this is a good time to think about when's the last time you checked your septic tank. And then one last pollution that we're going to add is our industrial waste. So we have our factories, and there's sometimes have waste that comes out of the factories and can get into our water too. So I'm going to pour our waste down into our factory. There, now we have a polluted watershed. Doesn't look so pretty, does it? Here in Washington, it tends to rain a lot. So we're going to see what happens to all the pollution that is on land when we get a rainstorm. So I'm going to use this really cool water cloud, and we're going to start a rainstorm. As you can see, all of that pollution, litter, trash, dog poop, our fertilizers, the oils from our cars, all of that runoff from the factories is all running off the watershed and down into our waters. Doesn't look so great now. Would you want to eat fish or shellfish that comes out of the water? Would you want to swim in that water? Would you even want to drink that water? I would say no. It wouldn't be good for our health, and it's not good for the health of all of our animals and our food that we get from that water. I'm going to clean up our watershed real quick, and we're going to talk about ways that we can make a difference. Now that we have a clean watershed, we're going to talk about the ways that you can help make sure that all the pollution does not run down into the Puget Sound. 1, you can reduce, reuse, and recycle everything that you buy. This will help limit the amount of trash and litter that ends up on our watershed. 2, pick up after your pets. Anytime your dog goes outside and poops, make sure you pick it up and put it away in the trash. And 3, you can help plant and restore our wetlands and buffer zones around our water to help protect it from those pollutions running into it. I'm going to demonstrate how planting our trees and our wetlands and restoring habitat will help with this pollution problem. I'm going to add trees to our riparian buffer zones. Riparian buffer zones are the places that run along our bodies of water that help soak up, just like the sponge, all of the pollution that's trying to get into our water sources. So we're going to plant them along our streams and our rivers so they can filter out all of the litter, dog poop, oil, and gas before it even gets there. Other places that we can help restore is the shoreline. Our shoreline have wetlands that also act like sponges to soak up all of our pollutants before they get to our water. And then we can always do easement areas in our agricultural lands. So making sure they have a strip of land between their fields and the water. Now that we've restored the watershed, I'm going to pollute it just a little bit because we're learning how to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So we're just going to add a few sprinkles to our parking lots, residential area, and our factory. We're also just going to use a little bit of the poop sprinkles because we're learning how to pick up our dog poop and check our septic tanks. Also going to add just a little fertilizer because we're limiting the amount that we're using on the land. And just a few drops of the oil and gas, because now we're checking our cars to make sure they're not leaking. Now here comes the rain. As you can see, our buffers are stopping a lot of the litter and the trash and stopping the oils from running off into our sound. Even the easement is stopping the poop and the fertilizers from coming off of our agricultural lands. And just like that, following those 3 simple steps helps us make a difference in making sure that all of our pollution doesn't end up in the Puget Sound. Thanks for joining me today with Exploring with the Estuarium, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give us a like, and if you want to continue getting our videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook at Puget Sound Estuarium. Thanks!